episode of Brain Bites, a bite-sized bit of financial information for your favorite trading card game, Magic the Gathering. If you've never heard us, go ahead and check us out at brainstormbrewery.com, and be sure to hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoy the content. So we're here to talk about Pauper, and the reason it's just me and not Jason and Corbin is because they don't care about Pauper, but I do, because I know that it has a lot of financial relevance, and that financial relevance is going to be even more important with Channel Fireball's recent announcement that they will be running a double up at their January Grand Prix featuring Pauper. And they said that they will be testing the waters and the attendance of these events to see if there is feasibility for a Pauper Grand Prix in the future. So they are testing to see if there is enough interest in Pauper to create a main event at a GP, which is pretty huge actually. So what does this mean for you? Well, Pauper is an interesting format because it's mostly played on Magic Online right now. And because of that, any actual paper Pauper events use the Magic Online ban list for the most part. And the Magic Online ban list for Pauper is really small. If you've ever seen it, it just contains 11 cards. And that's Cloud of Fairies, Cloud Post, Cranioplating, Empty the Warrens, Frantic Search, Grape Shot, Invigorate, Peregrine Drake, Temporal Fissure, and Treasure Cruise. And most of those cards are on the ban list because Storm is just a good mechanic. There's a bunch of Storm cards on there, there's one Affinity card, an Infect card, and I guess a couple other blue cards in Cloud Post, but for the most part, Pauper has a very small ban list. And that could very easily change if Pauper becomes more popular in paper. I mean, we've talked about Pauper paper picks on Breaking Bulk at Brainstorm Brewery on the podcast, and this is a format that could easily be shaken up a whole ton if we get huge paper events for it. I mean, right now the metagame has Delver, Elves, Burn, Affinity, Boggles, Stompy, a lot of low-to-the-ground decks that are just sort of non-interactive. And if we get events at these Pauper events that are 50, 100, 200 players and they're at competitive level, we're going to see the format tighten up. We're going to see a lot of decks disappear, and we might see some actual more frequent bannings related to Pauper. I mean, the most recent banning for Pauper was Peregrine Drake, and that was over a year ago. So what does this mean for you financially? Well, there are certain cards on Magic Online that are technically Pauper legal because they have been common in Magic Online only sets. So cards like Battle Screech, cards like Brindle Shoat, and cards like Chainer's Edict have never been printed at common in paper, but they are a common on either Vintage Masters or some other Magic Online set that doesn't exist in paper. And that means those cards are legal for paper Pauper events. It's one of the reasons Chainer's Edict, it's pretty much the only reason Chainer's Edict is like a $4 or $5 card. It's the reason Battle Screech is like a $4 or $5 card. And if we see these paper Pauper events become popular, then we're going to see the prices on these cards increase by a significant margin before they get a chance to be reprinted. So these are some gatekeeper cards of the format where the cards end up being really, really expensive. For a Pauper deck, I mean, when you think of Pauper, you think of all commons. So you think, oh, I'll just spend 30, 40 bucks on a deck, and that'll be the end of it. But if we see Battle Screech hitting $8 or $9 because it's being played in actual Grand Prix events, then Pauper becomes a lot less accessible real quickly, even though your mana base is effectively guild gates that gain you 1 life. So it's really, really important if you're interested in playing Pauper, or if you're interested in the format financially at all, to get a heads up on some of these cards that could gatekeep you out of the format if you're looking to pick up the cards for cheap. So one of the most important things about Pauper that I mentioned earlier is that the ban list is really small. And there's a lot of cards that are banned in several other formats, including Legacy or Modern or even Vintage or Restricted in Vintage, that are just totally fine to play in Pauper as 4-ofs. And these are cards that could very easily be removed from the format after 1 or 2 Grand Prix. If you've been playing Magic for a long time, you'll know that Modern as a format was invented in 2011 or so, and then there were very quickly a lot of cards added to the ban list. I mean, the initial Modern ban list was only around 21 cards. I mean, that's basically 17 cards if you count the artifact lands, which are legal in Pauper, by the way. And then the Modern ban list quickly became a lot longer after GP Philadelphia, after several other Modern events came out, and people realized just how broken the format could be. And that's something that we could see an echo of if we get these huge scale Pauper events. So Pauper's a format where you get to play Preordain, Ponder, Original Counterspell. Gush is a card you can play 4 of in Pauper. Nettle Sentinel's a good card, obviously, but I mean, like, Pyroblast, Hydroblast, these are just really, really powerful cards. Brainstorm you get to play 4 of, and these are all pretty powerful blue cards. Delver of Secrets you get to play 4 of, and this format could very easily be shaken up if blue proves to be too powerful of a format-defining color, if blue proves to just shut out every other color, and the GP top 8 decks are just all mono blue or Delver-based blue-red decks. We could very easily see the format be shaken up really quickly by Wizards, and that could have a huge impact on prices. I mean, right now, Gush is a $2 to $3 card that you can regularly buy list for $1.50. Preordain's maintaining its $2 price tag, even though it's never really been reprinted en masse. But that's a card that could easily just lose a lot of its buy list value if vendors stop accepting it for Pauper formats, because there are a lot of areas, even if you don't have a local Pauper scene, there are several hotbeds in Magic across the country where Pauper is pretty popular. And I use that alliteration unintentionally, and I feel like I've been doing pretty good about that so far. But, like, upstate New York, where I'm from, at TCG Player, there's a huge Pauper league based on where all the employees participate for the most part. And I sell a lot of Pauper decks to these people, if you've heard about me talk about this on the podcast. Like, I sell Preordains, I sell Lightning Bolts, I sell Ponders and stuff like that to people who are buying them for the sole purpose of Pauper. And, I mean, Ponder, Gush, Brainstorm, Preordain, these are all really powerful cards that I think would be on the watch list if Pauper starts to become more popular. So what would you be looking at for specs in terms of Pauper? Well, I mean, it's kind of hard because you'd have to look towards those gatekeeper cards that are already pretty expensive, so you have a higher buy-in. It's not like you can go on TCG Player and buy 800 copies of a 4-cent card and have it quintuple overnight, because any card that is already at a really low price point and is still good in Pauper has been printed en masse to the point where buying that many copies at that price point won't be worth it for a price flip or for a profit flip. So you can't really go out on TCG Player and buy 800 Fairy Miscreants or 800 Burning Tree Emissaries, or even like something like Prophetic Prism or Augur of Bolas, and these are some of those popular cards in the format, just because there won't be that significant of a price increase. We have to look at cards that already have a lower supply, like Manamorphose, like Oubliette even is a really big gatekeeper for those who want to play like the Mono Black Devotion deck with Green Merchant. But Chainer's Edict, Battle Screech, Brindle Show, these are all examples of cards that define their respective archetypes for the most part. I mean, Chainer's Edict is one of the only outs that Mono Black has to Boggles or other sort of Edict effects like Diabolic Edict. Battle Screech is just a core piece of like the white aggressive decks that could play Glint Hawk or Kadoltha Rebirth. And these are just cards that you will need 4 of if you want to participate in a Pauper GP or Pauper GP side event in the future. So Pauper is worth paying attention to. I mean, if you're interested in more Pauper finance, go to brainstormbrewery.com and check out some of our RSS feeds, download the podcasts. Be sure to hit that like, subscribe, and enjoy button of the YouTube channel. I mean, tell Jason and Corbin that they should pay attention to Pauper more.